Hi, everyone. If just a reminder, this broadcast is best viewed in speaker view, not gallery view. So if you can choose speaker view, that will be the best user experience for you. And also turn off your video and mute your audio. And keep in mind that we'll have time for a Q&A following the broadcast. So if you have any questions, please add them to the Zoom chat to my attention, and we'll follow up after the broadcast. Evan, let's get started. Good evening. I'm Kari Peterson reporting tonight with my remote team on the latest UXR news. We'll begin with our top story. Our top story tonight, the Chegg marketing group is 100% focused on building a big, ubiquitous brand. In other news, Chegg's key marketing themes are customer in front, deliver the business, build our brand, strong foundation, and build a high performance team. And of course, it wouldn't be a segment with top stories if we didn't include something about COVID-19. For the latest in Chegg COVID-19 reporting, let's go to virus expert Rosa Wren. Good evening, Rosa.
Good evening, Kari. Good evening, Kari, and good evening to our audiences at home. As you can see, it's been a little difficult getting a hold of students in person on campuses lately. Fortunately, we have been able to get a hold of a lot of students online via unmoderated interviews. So here's a report I prepared for us. Let me take a few moments to get that going. Again, keep in mind, we're working under adverse conditions.
Since early March, students have experienced huge upheavals. Initially, there were a lot of uncertainties about what each school was going to do. Classes were put on hold while administrations figured out what to do. Many students were sent home on short notice when campuses shut down. A lot of students also had extended spring breaks and were then told not to return for the rest of the school term. Most schools have resumed online by now via Zoom lectures and various digital ways to communicate with students and share school material. They also made some adjustments to account for the disruptions and abrupt changes. Some administrations have adopted pass-fail policies for this term's classes. Professors have been extending deadlines, canceling certain assignments, and allowing open book exams. However, many students are still struggling with transition to online classes. Let's hear what they are saying.
Why are you wearing a napkin around your neck?
Go back to your class. Hey, come back later. Anyway, let's hear what they are saying.
The biggest thing on my mind this past week has been keeping up with assignments. Since everything has been moved on to Zoom, it has been a little bit difficult to keep track of everything. My professors have been a very big help in trying to utilize Canvas, which is the system that my school used before everything got moved online, just to put assignments on there, and was used in addition to in-class time. Without in-class time, just Canvas is a little bit difficult. It's a little bit hard to not have that interaction with my professor. If I ever have a question while I'm going through the assignments, I have to email them and wait for their response, which usually isn't too long, but it is just a little bit more difficult than being in class and being able to raise my hand. It's just hard to time how long it actually is going to take me to get assignments done. And I feel like it's difficult to keep my life in order.
Do the online assignments, I look at the PowerPoints, but I just wonder if I would be retaining information more if I were actually in a lecture class. I really just want to make sure I retain the information so when I go into a career that I know what I'm talking about and know and understand what my boss is telling me.
I would say writing has been one of the hardest things to transition into because you don't have that peer reviews like I'd have in my recitations. I'm having my mom read it. I'm having my girlfriend read it. I'm using Grammarly to read it, spell check it. My process of writing's probably gotten slower and just more sporadic.
We can't have any more lectures in person. It makes it difficult to get your own one-on-one time with the professors. The online schooling is not moving very well. Having a lot of problem with the Zoom calls and however way we want to organize things.
And students are dealing with more than concerns of online learning.
I pay for my own school. Unfortunately, I just got sent home because my store is closed due to the virus.
The family business is taking a lot of time out of my day. It's creating stress at the household.
We had a huge tornado that hit down in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It was an EF3 tornado. This tornado tore up our mall, most of some major businesses. It was just devastating to see what a tornado can do and what it looks like in person.
We also try to understand if moving to school online means changes in the way students study, prepare for exams, and use online resources. So far, the biggest adjustments to studying is about keeping track and managing all the digital activities. Finding the time and space to study with everyone else at home can also be challenging. And so it's keeping a healthy balance between all the sitting at the computer and other activities.
I've had to be super on top of my assignments more than I would have had to if the classes were in person. I've been setting a lot of alarms. I've just been trying to manage my time as best as I can. If I don't, I know that I'm just going to fall further behind. And that's the last thing I want for my money to go to waste and for me to have to be working towards my bachelor's degree longer than I need to. I also had to purchase like a Wi-Fi plan for at home so that I could participate in the Zoom and keep on top of everything.
The only thing that I would say would change would give myself some time to go outside and walk around, because being in the house for too long would not only just make me go crazy, it will for sure reduce my productivity just being in closed doors all day.
The nature of assignments haven't changed much for many classes. It is more challenging for those who need to do work in special facilities like labs and libraries. Group projects are more difficult to coordinate. Those in the performing arts are struggling to find ways to record themselves and get feedback.
My lab has completely just pretty much ended for the semester. We still had about 3 to 4 more labs left, and obviously you can't do those over the computer, so we just ended up having an exam.
Honestly, I think the most stressful thing has been coordinating group projects. We have a group project meeting tomorrow. We always meet in person with group members, and I have 2 members of my group, and one of them right now is in Europe, and one of them is in a different time period as well. So coordinating things between different time zones and making sure people are held accountable for their work is really stressful, especially without a teacher to constantly remind people that they need to set up group meetings. I don't think that having online meetings has really helped people accountable as much.
Exams have become easier and harder at the same time. Schools are allowing students to have their books, notes, and sometimes even access to the internet. At the same time, the technology such as webcam and special browser software are a hassle and don't always work. Many students are also concerned that without adequate monitoring, not all students will be honest.
I'm well aware that there was a lot of cheating going on during finals. I've heard people talking about it. I know people that did. So the grades were not fair. My biggest concern for next quarter is we are going to have the prompting services. We're one of the nerdiest UCs. So I know people are going to figure it out. And I'm just worried that my normal studying is not going to get me an A like it usually would, because the class average is going to be much higher. People will find a way to cheat.
For some, despite being allowed more resources, the exams aren't necessarily any easier, and they aren't given additional time to take advantage of the extra resources.
For organic chemistry has been a nightmare to take online. There were times before in person that I barely finished exams or I didn't finish exams. And then I took it online and I tried to use some resources. I tried to use some notes and things like that. And I just really blew it as far as time management and knowing how much time to expect to have per problem on an online exam. So yeah, that is something that was really different.
When it comes to the use of online resources, many students talked about their learning management system as the most often used online resource currently. Even those who didn't use them before are checking more often.
All I'm really using to help with my schoolwork is Canvas, and that's the system that we use for grading and assignments and anything that we have to turn in online. That would be it. We've been using that since the beginning of the school year. I just got off Canvas, so I can show you that. This is Canvas. This is my invented languages class. And she did make some adjustments as far as like the syllabus and what was required and stuff, which is good. Let's see, so if I were to go on my dashboard, it just has everything laid out like normal.
For most students, professors have not recommended any new online resources that they didn't already recommend previously.
I'm not using anything new on a regular basis. I'm just using more of the online resources that we've already had, even more than I normally would. Since we don't have that hands-on approach now, I've been reinforcing with some online material, like the videos I would normally watch once, now I'm watching twice so that I review my notes and everything. Nothing new and nothing unheard of, like that a professor has suggested is so brand new that I've had to adopt.
Many students are not happy that school has become completely online.
This isn't really what I signed up for. I signed up for in-person classes. When the year first started, I only had one online class, and now I'm having to juggle 4. Not at all what I had planned. It's not really going well. I'm trying to manage everything, and I just can't keep up.
As they look past the current term, though no one has any ideas of what schools might be like in fall, students are hopeful that school will return back to normal. However, if school were to continue online the next term, most see themselves continuing.
Should the fall term continue online, I am going to treat this as I would if it was in person. I'm going to still continue my plans. I don't care what pandemic is going on. I'm graduating from Fisher. I want to graduate from this program at UFR. In person, online doesn't matter because it's going to happen either way.
So this is all we have this week. We'll keep monitoring the student situation and report back as we learn. And now back to you, Kari.
Thank you, Rosa. And don't forget to wash those hands. I'm going to hand it over to my co-anchor, Evan Metzke now. Good evening, Evan. What do you have for us tonight?
Good evening, Kari. Tonight we have a very special guest with us, Professor Sabina Blasi. She's with us live from some university to tell us about a theory called cognitive load. You're not going to want to miss this. Sabina, can you please tell us a little bit about what you've learned so far about cognitive load? Sabina?
Sorry, I was muted. So, good evening, Evan, and good evening to the viewers of UXR News. Thanks for inviting me today to talk about cognitive load and how it affects information processing of students who use online tools like Chegg to study and learn. So what is cognitive load? I'm going to share. Can you see this? Hello?
It's coming through very clear.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, so cognitive load is the effort needed to complete a task, any task. And in this case, when we're dealing with a website, is using the website to achieve a goal that a user has in mind. Imagine Julia, a student at De Anza College, is scanning through her research results, and she has to decide whether one of the suggestions is a good answer to her physics homework problem. Cognitive load affects how easily students can find content and complete their assignments. However, our working memory is a limited resource, and we can only manage to process between 5 and 9 items or chunks, topics, or however you want to put it. So while Julia keeps track of her goal to answer her homework problems, she's also dealing with upcoming exams and papers, as well as the repercussions of the pandemic, such as financial worries and the uncertainty of her academic future. And this is all adding up and will end up with cognitive overload. As a response to cognitive overload, which is the inability to process everything needed to complete a task and potentially results in a failure to notice crucial information, it also ultimately leads to frustration. In an effort to succeed in her goals to reduce cognitive load, Julia may start ignoring extraneous information that doesn't help her achieve her immediate goals. An example would be an email from Chegg about upgrading her subscriptions. And here is what she said a few days ago when she was commenting on the emails she got. An example would be emails from Chegg about upgrading her subscription to Chegg Study Pack. So how can we help her? Here are some suggestions on how we may help students by reducing cognitive load. In order for the student not to have to juggle all pertinent information in her working memory, we can help them by offloading some of the details onto the web page. Breaking down complex tasks into easy to process steps and providing contextual guidance effectively decreases cognitive load as well. We can leverage existing mental models and metaphors that are readily available in long-term memory to speed up cognitive processing. And last but not least, avoiding visual clutter and distractions will also lower cognitive load. So what is a good user experience? It is an experience that doesn't get noticed much. It's described as intuitive, easy to use, and straightforward. I hope you found this information helpful and applicable to your work. Thank you. That's all for now. And back to you, Evan.
Thank you, Sabina. That was truly a riveting talk, and I was really glad to have you on the show. I really just do have one more question.
A sandwich? Yeah. Do you want a sandwich on bread?
I'm going to eat that first.
Or do you want a sandwich?
We seem to have some interruption, but I do have one more question for you. As a professor with hands-on experience with students, what has school been like lately?
Oh, I haven't noticed much change. The same number of people come to my in-person office hours as they used to.
Well, that's a very grim note. And on that note, thank you again for sharing your talk. And let's take it back to Kari in the studio.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Dr. Blasey. Hey, Evan, what do you call a cognitive behavioral scientist with 2 pet donkeys?
I don't know, Kari. What do you call a cognitive scientist with 2 pet donkeys?
Biased. Now, let's hear from our Emmy Award-winning investigative reporter, Mark Wenner. Mark just conducted an in-depth investigation diving into the dark world of student account sharing. Mark?
Thanks, Kari. You know, when I'm not polishing my Emmys, I'm going deep into the underbelly of student culture. Do you believe that there are students who are using Chegg but not paying for it? They call it account sharing. And it's a new trend that's sweeping the nation. Join me as we see some never before seen footage of students talking about how and why they lend, share, and even split accounts. So there are 4 basic scenarios that came about, and let's walk through each one of these. So the first one was account splitting. So these were students basically going in 50-50 3 ways. It was seen as sort of the smart thing to do, to split an account, especially if you don't need it that often. And then there were those who were just what I call infrequent unlockers, people who didn't need Chegg that often, and they were just looking to unlock an answer. And this could happen in many forms. Sometimes a friend might share a screenshot, sometimes they might actually share their screen in person, and other times they may lend them their credentials. If they are lending their credentials, it may take the form of BFF lending. And this is where you have this tight-knit sharing between two people who really share a high relation with each other and really want to see each other succeed. And then there was the gratuitous snowball sharing. Now in these areas, people were sharing in a way that was unselective, and it really got out of hand and got into our account restriction scenarios. And even students thought this was dumb because it got shared too often, and this is something that they learned from and tried to avoid in the future. So why are students lending accounts to each other to begin with? Well, it all comes down to helping each other. Now this isn't just being a nice person. And when you actually talk and listen to students, they actually tell more of a story around how being a student means that you're in it together. You have a shared culture of trying to help each other out, support each other. In fact, the whole reason why a study group exists is to succeed in trying to help each other. You all share a struggle, you all empathize with each other, and it really is important. So let's hear from them and listen to these students talk about what was important about sharing their accounts, how they shared it with the people that were important to them.
So eventually you did get your own account. What made you decide to do that versus just keep borrowing, you know, your fraternity brother's account or maybe another classmate?
I think nobody had an account anymore because everybody's account was closed or everybody was too scared to share anymore. So like I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna do it. Like I'll just share it with two people. I won't tell nobody that I have one. Do you have one? I'm like, nah, I don't, man. Sorry, man. I wish I knew. So that was the way. Like I said, I just shared it to the two people that are closest to me and that like help me out, and hopefully I can help them out. When I was like in 7th grade, and he's one of the people that's just been over and inspiring, and then always like been able to help me out because he's a year older than me, like in the school wise. He went to college first, and he's the one that's been pretty much helping me put the pieces together, trying to find out how to get through, how to navigate, how to like every time I have questions on math, he's the genius in math. So I just kind of gave him. I was like, here, man, use it because you've always helped me. So that was my thought of giving it to him, and with the fraternity brother, me and him taking the same classes. Like, look, I think me and him were supposed to go half and half. And I gave it to the other guy just so like as a thank you. I was like, hey man, if you ever need, and it's on Chegg, here man. Like, got you. Yeah, that's all it was. I'm happy because it's like I'm sharing it with people that because I wish I could share with everybody. You know what I mean? Like I feel kind of bad. I'm only sharing it with two people. Like, some people do need it.
So like I was helping out with that, and then I was like, and then like I didn't know one of the words or like sentences, and so I was like, we can just check it. So that's what I did, and like I put in my credentials like through her account, and then like she was able to like learn from it and like get more sentences and like more like a whole paragraph, I guess, and she started reading it. She was like, oh, I get this, because like it would like put the sentences in, and like she was able to like put more sentences in that like pertain to the same like question that she was like that was like asked on her homework, I guess. And like after that, I think I logged out, and then like another time, like she randomly just like Snapchatted me saying, hey, can I use your Chegg account again? Hey, yeah. Like most people can't afford it because I know it's like $15 a month, and like most of my friends, like what they do is like they share ownership. So like both of them pay like $750, or if it's like a group, they like all chip in like every month to like pay for it. So like the price, yes, and some people might not have that at that moment, or like they just need like a one-time thing. So it's like a one-time thing type thing. So like you just help them out that one time, and then like maybe they'll ask for it later or they'll use it later. So like I don't necessarily think it's wrong, but because like they're your friend and you want to help them out and you want to help other people succeed and stuff.
So helping people succeed, that was a big part of it. And just students also said, learning is a shared experience. Teaching is sharing. And so if you're part of helping each other, part of a study group, why wouldn't you use your resources to help the other students that are a part of it? So sort of a natural extension of that culture. And this is in stark contrast to other things that they share like Hulu or Netflix, where it doesn't do anything for somebody else if you help them. That is truly just being a nice person. So what caused people who used to borrow get an account in the future? Well, a lot of things. Sometimes borrowing is just not an option. You can't find somebody to borrow with. Account restrictions, they're paying, password resets, locks, they don't want to deal with that. Sometimes it's just getting a job. That was the reason. Also just growing. Classes get harder. Chegg becomes more necessary. Junior years are real pain, all those upper division classes, and it becomes something that's more necessary. And students also said, borrowing was part of me deciding to get Chegg, that had I not had borrowed, I wouldn't have figured out that it was something that was useful to my studying. And so it was actually part of that conversion flow with these students. And then there were these attitudinal motivations, students just changing their attitudes. It's mine, I'm in control was one reason. And then there was also this mindset shift of some students thinking about Chegg as an investment. Let's hear more from these students as they talk about what led to them thinking of Chegg differently and how they think about Chegg than they did in the past.
Because Netflix, you watch a show, okay, like that's it. But with Chegg or Quizlet, like I use it and then I learn it and then like I'm able to apply it. Plus like it affects my education, like what I'm learning, like how I move forward with it. Yeah, to be honest, yeah, Chegg is the only thing that I actually like pay for, like with my own money, which is surprising because I'm never just like, oh yeah, like I'll pay for it.
I think it was me just noticing that Chegg is not just an account that people have. It's to actually see and get schoolwork done and help you learn. So I think for me, that was a changing point for me. That was just looking within myself and just saying that, why don't you actually pay for something that's going to help you out instead of asking 10 million people and getting the password changed on you all the time? You might as well get it yourself, do your work. And it's not like this investment you spend 15 BS sometimes. So why not spend it on something that's going to help you in class and with a lot of other things? That was a push for me.
So you heard students talking about Chegg as an investment, and that's part of that mindset sheet. Seeing Chegg as part of adding to their college career, something we all want to see, but something that we probably have to strive for and think about how we can get students into this mindset. Well, what makes them not want to share? Well, today, it's nothing really. It's the account sharing restrictions. That's the only reason they wouldn't share today. Password resets, locks, avoiding that snowball scenario. It's the only reason today. In the future, it all came down to privacy and personalization. What we could add came down to these two things. This sounds intuitive, but let me describe it a little bit further. Privacy means, is there going to be any information I don't want other people to see? Perhaps it's my grades, perhaps it's other personal things that people shouldn't see. My papers was one example, because of fear of plagiarism, maybe only a few people should see it. And then personalization. Now, personalization isn't so much that it's personalized, but more so is somebody else using the account going to affect my experience? So they brought up scenarios like Spotify, things that maybe they had shared, and those experiences of other users really affected their own experience on Spotify based on different tastes in music and their behavior. So let's listen to students talk a little bit more about this aspect of thinking about Chegg in a different way and how this compares to some of these other services that they could also share.
I would definitely draw a distinction between like my academics and entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would feel more inclined to give someone my accounts for academics because, like I said, like we're all struggling together. Like I get that. But entertainment wise, like that's my own stuff. And it's like, it's appealing to me in the algorithms that it's like, oh, you watch this show, maybe you'll like this show. But then if my friend's watching Law and Order and I don't like Law and Order, and then it's recommending like CSI instead, like that's when I'm going to get annoyed, because it's like, all right, like this needs to stop.
Like something like Spotify is very personalized, at least for me. I wouldn't really want to share that, but something like Chegg doesn't really matter, because you're just going on. It's not really like a service you're getting. You're just getting access or to see an answer, rather than having access to a whole service like what Spotify would be, or something like Netflix, you know?
So there you have it. Moving Chegg from an access to a service. That's all the news from the underground. From me, Mark Weiner, investigative reporter, no, Emmy Award-winning investigative reporter for UXR News. Now handing it back to you, Kari.
Thanks, Mark. That was an outstanding report. I think you'll be polishing another Emmy very soon. By the way, if you're looking for a +1 for the Emmy Awards show, you can count me in. My calendar is wide open. Unfortunately, so is my awards shelf at home. I got to get my hands on one of those Emmys one of these days. Oh, hey, it's time for a weather report with Katie. Good evening, Katie. What do you have for us tonight?
It's pronounced catty. Anyway, here I am at the Chegg website with my weather report on whether or not students understand our services. Let's take a closer look, shall we?
Okay, so here's the map of our homepage right here, and as we can see, students are coming in from the east and the west and the north and the south, and they're looking for two things. They're looking to save money and to study. So it's a good thing that we have these guys right here, where they can save money on books and they can study, but they don't really know what this means. Study. What do we mean by study exactly? So even some students that subscribe to Chegg Study don't exactly know what they might find if they were to click on study. And also some of the products that are found within these links are a mystery to students. Like, what exactly is Q&A? And what is practice? And what exactly is learn? Also, the organization of our services doesn't quite match students' priorities. Like I said before, students want to save money on books and to study, but they also need to complete their homework, which for some reason isn't really mentioned very much here. Other groups that seemed natural to students were writing and human help, and also careers. What am I going to do next? But these groupings didn't always appear in the same way that students think of them. And also some one-offs didn't really come out in specific groups. So the point is, we think about our products a whole lot differently than students do. And unless we show them we're thinking about products in the same way that they are, they may just roll out and leave us in the cold.
Back to you, Kari.
I was expecting a weather report. Don't you know anything about the weather?
I haven't been outside of my house in 2 months.
Yeah, forgot about that. Well, now we have a real treat in store for you. We have a sneak peek of our upcoming news series, Students Around the World, with Tristan Krautkramer. Good evening, Tristan.
Good evening, Kari, and thank you everyone for joining us for Students Around the World. I'm Tristan Krautkramer, live from jolly old England. We're going on a fascinating global adventure today, and I really hope you enjoy it. So, these are the 5 countries that the international team will be focusing on for this quarter. Let's start out with the UK, where I really am right now. So the education timeline in the UK is very different from what we typically see in the United States. Students have to stay in school from the age of 14 to 16 years old through primary and secondary school. At the end of that time, they take a test called the GCSE. Secondary school is also sometimes called GCSEs by students, which gives you a sense of how important tests are in the British education system. After students take their GCSEs, they can choose to go on to sixth form, which is kind of like a college prep program. Confusingly, British students call this college. So in the UK, college means something very different than what we normally call it in the States. This lasts for 2 years, and at the end of it, you take a test called A-levels, and this sixth form, as a result of that, is sometimes called A-levels. That test determines where you go to university, where you'll stay for 3 years, and then some students continue on to graduate school. The language UK students use to describe their education is also pretty different than what we are used to in the United States. So we already talked about the difference between college and university. You also have students saying revise when they're talking about studying for a test. So instead of saying review or study, they use the term revise. Also, if a UK student says the word paper, it's very likely that they mean a practice test instead of an essay, which is the way we normally think of the word paper. It's also the case that word of mouth isn't something that we can necessarily trust to spread the word about Chegg in the UK. We know that in the States, most students subscribe in their third, fourth year, and that's when they tell other students about it. In the UK, it's only 3 years, so we miss out on that last year. Also, UK students tend to find partners to study with in the first year and then stick with that group throughout their whole time, rather than in the US, instead of in the US, where students are having lots of different study partners based on the class that they're enrolled in. Also in the UK, in those final years of university and in graduate school, there's a sharp decrease in the number of hours that students spend in class. There is a decrease in the United States, but it's not as sharp, not as pronounced as what we see in the UK. Also in the UK, students are trained to look for resources online that are going to be very relevant to them. So when they're in college, often they'll look up only for resources that say A-levels on them because they want something that's going to prepare them for the test. This continues on when they're in college and university, and they'll look for resources that have some sort of a connection to their school. If they can't find that, the next best step is to look for resources that have some connection to a school in the UK. Okay, and now let's switch over to Korea. So for Korean students, English classes are a requirement. And that doesn't mean how we normally think of language classes like Spanish or French. These are classes that are for their major, computer science classes, business classes that are taught in English with English materials. So you have those English classes, you have classes in Korean, and then there are also some classes that are a mix where there's English material that the students are learning, but the professor is translating it into Korean in real time. So for some students, there's a mandatory percentage or a mandatory number of English classes they have to take. But even if that's not the case, students will sign up for English classes because some of those English classes are considered the best classes at the university, and they really want to make sure that they take them. Language concerns are also something that drive the website choices that students make. We notice that Korean students tend to shy away from websites that they view as not for Koreans. And obviously, English language is one of the main ways that they recognize that. They will go out of their way, if it's a website that they feel like they really need, to look for a change country mode so that they can change the language to Korean and make it more comfortable for themselves. We also learned that students really go out of their way to create connections with upperclassmen. It's a well-known fact in Korea that upperclassmen have past exams, test banks, past homework, or just advice about the class that you might be taking. So they'll really try to establish a friendship with upperclassmen and then ask them for help on the various classes that they're taking. When students are looking online in Korea, they tend to gravitate towards links that have .edu or library in the title, and that's even more pronounced when that website is connected to a university that they recognize, like a Stanford or a Oxford. Like in the UK, word of mouth is not quite as strong in Korea. Students don't really tell each other about the tools they use. A couple of these students used Chegg that I interviewed, but they hadn't really told their friends about it. Either one, because they felt that it was a secret weapon, that they didn't want to give that edge to their colleagues, or two, because it's an American site, they just felt like other Korean students wouldn't really feel like it was very helpful to them, or it wasn't something that they would want to use. Okay, checking us with us next week for our next segment of Students Around the World. Tristan Krautkramer, International News. Back to you, Kari.
Thanks very much, Tristan. I'm really looking forward to watching your entire Students Around the World series. I have to tell you, though, I'm a bit disappointed you didn't include a K-pop video clip with your South Korea stuff. I love me some BTS. What's that? Oh, breaking news. I love breaking news. Yes, exciting breaking news. Let's go now to our researcher in New York City, Sarah Gilbert. Sarah, what is going on over there?
Good evening, Kari, and good evening, viewers. I'm here to report that today is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, and I am alive. Back to you, Kari.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a riveting breaking news segment. As some of our regular viewers know, at this point in our broadcast, we usually have a traffic update for you. Well, I'm sorry to say that we've furloughed our traffic reporter because nobody's commuting to work these days. In fact, the only commute traffic I've seen around my house is my neighbor's chicken, Clara, doing her morning walk, or should I say commute, across the top of the fence. Did that share go through, Evan?
It went through very well.
Oh, great. Don't want people to miss out on Clara.
I'm still here, Clara.
Hey, Evan, that reminds me of a funny little joke. Do we have time for a joke?
Oh, we always have time for jokes on UXR News.
Great. Why did the chicken cross the fence?
I don't know. Why did the chicken cross the fence?
Because she wanted to be socially distant. Well, with that, I'll say goodnight. From everyone here at Chegg UXR, let's stay apart, but stay together. And wash those hands. Good night, everyone.